Tonight, West Virginia's teachers get a deal.
It's the deal we're settling for, but it's not good enough.
Democrats' big hope in Texas.
We've got to win.
And Russia's resistance tattoos. Sri Lanka's government declared a nationwide state of emergency today after rioting and violence broke out against the country's Muslim minority. Sinhalese Buddhists, who make up about 70% of the population, have attacked mosques and properties in the city of Kandy. There's a long history of tensions between the two groups, but this latest conflict follows the death of a Sinhalese man who was allegedly assaulted by a group of Muslim men in a road rage incident. Britain promised a robust response if there's evidence that Russia had a hand in a suspected poisoning of a former Russian spy.
If those suspicions prove to be well-founded, then this government will take whatever measures we deem necessary to protect the lives of the people in this country, our values, and our freedoms.
Counterterrorism police are investigating the case of a double agent, Sergei Skripal, and his daughter, who were found unconscious on a bench in Salisbury, England. They're now hospitalized in critical condition. In 2006, Skripal was sentenced to prison in Russia for spying for British intelligence, but was released as part of a spy swap and got asylum in the UK. The Japanese Navy has chosen a woman to take command of a warship unit for the first time. Roko Azuma will oversee the country's largest destroyer and a combined crew of 1,000 people. Women only make up about 6% of Japan's military, and when Roko first joined the Navy in 1996, women weren't even allowed to serve on warships.
私自身あまり女性ということは意識しておりません。ですので、護衛隊司令として与えられた職責を全うしていくこと、これに集中していきたいと考えております。
The military is trying to get more women to join to make up for an aging population and low recruitment numbers. A State Department official tells Vice News that the agency has a secret plan to combat Russian propaganda. According to the official, who spoke on condition of anonymity, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, quote, approved a classified strategy to counter state-sponsored disinformation and propaganda. It's unclear if the program has started yet, and the official declined to give any other details. But analysts and former State Department officials told Vice News that a slow-moving plan that's being kept under wraps is yet another indication that the U.S. is failing to mount a serious response to Russia's aggressive information warfare campaign. The State Department didn't respond to a request for details about the strategy. Gary Cohn, President Trump's top economic advisor, is resigning. Cohn is a free trader, and he was always something of an odd fit for Trump, who's been digging in even harder on his plan for new tariffs. Speaking at the White House today, the president made it clear that he's as determined as ever to move forward.
Well, the United States has been taken advantage of by other countries, both friendly and not so friendly, for many, many decades.
And that a little trade war between friends is no big deal.
We're going to straighten it out, and we'll do it in a very loving way. It'll be a loving, loving way. They'll like us better, and they will respect us much more.
The other Republicans in D.C., most of them don't agree. But now they have to decide what to do about it.
Many Republicans on the Hill are clearly annoyed with President Trump's pronouncement that he is going to impose blanket tariffs on imports of steel and aluminum. But they are careful about how they express that annoyance, making sure to compliment the president's take on the situation while also disagreeing with him.
There's a big overcapacity problem. Let's go focus on that. Let's go focus on the abusers of that. And that is why we think that the proper approach is a more surgical approach so that we do not have unintended consequences.
A more surgical approach. That's code for punish China, leave Canada, the #1 exporter of steel to America, alone. Republicans are trying to nudge Trump to a more moderate approach. They seem to be reluctant to use their power to stop him, even though that is a power that Congress actually has. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution gives Congress the power to collect duties and imposts and gives it the power to regulate commerce with foreign nations. But over the years, Congress has handed most of that power over to the executive branch. Senator Mike Lee of Utah has been griping about this since before Trump became president, and his reaction to the president's comments was immediate alarm. You saw the tweet last week. He's talked a little bit about an announcement of blanket tariff when it comes to steel imports and aluminum imports. When you saw that tweet, what was your reaction?
Oh, no. This is the first sort of thing that you would expect when a country decides to start entering into a trade war. Now, I don't think anyone starts out saying, I want to start a trade war, but it's how trade wars happen. When you take a few steps, in this case, when you start putting tariffs on imports of basic manufacturing inputs like steel and aluminum, that's going to prompt a series of responses by other countries, and it's probably going to spread, and that's concerning.
Senator Lee's been anticipating this for a while. In fact, back in January of 2017, on the day Trump was inaugurated, Lee introduced the Global Trade Accountability Act, which would roll back the president's power by making it clear that long-term unilateral trade actions require congressional approval.
At least as a matter of constitutional policy, I think it's unwise for Congress to delegate this much discretionary authority to the executive branch when it comes to trade.
His bill, like many pieces of legislative text that get introduced in Congress, didn't get any traction then, and even though it seems especially relevant now, and other offices have reached out to Lee about the measure, it's still not seeing any real movement. Republicans up on the Hill are now quite aware that just because the president tweets policy or says something in a meeting, it doesn't mean that's actually what's going to happen. See Exhibits A, immigration, and B, the military transgender policy. But Lee still says we can't totally dismiss the president's words.
It's a matter of public policy. So yeah, I take it seriously. That doesn't mean that there still isn't time for him to decide not to do this. I hope he will decide not to.
You think he can be shifted by interviews like this, by statements like Speaker Ryan made yesterday? Can he be shifted to make this more nuanced?
I don't know. And it's not my place to speak for the president or to try to predict what the president's going to do here. I really can't tell you that. What I do know is that we would be better off as a country if he didn't do it.
It's primary day in Texas, the day when Democrats dream big about a dynamic new candidate and the inevitable demographic wave that's finally going to turn the state blue, until November arrives and Texas stays bright red. But today brought even more optimism than usual among Texas Dems. The party's turnout in early voting has broken records, and Congressman Beto O'Rourke, who's expected to easily win the Senate primary to take on Ted Cruz, says he has a strategy that'll finally give Democrats more than just a moral victory.
How y'all doing? So good to see you. This could not be more important, and it could not be more possible thanks to the commitment that everyone here is making.
Beto O'Rourke doesn't sound like the guy you'd think could win Texas. No twang, no moderation, just sweeping rhetoric about the right moment.
I think that we, Texans, are the answer to the fear, the anxiety, this smallness that seems to dominate right now.
He was born and raised in El Paso, but the rest of his bio is pretty unusual.
God's gonna stand up. God's gonna stand up.
O'Rourke played bass in a punk band, rode crew, and graduated with an English lit degree from Columbia. Oh, and he was arrested twice on burglary and drunken driving charges, though never convicted, before starting a web design company and serving 3 terms in Congress. But there's one clear Texas characteristic O'Rourke does have: big-time confidence against all odds.
A Democrat hasn't won statewide in Texas since '94. Democrat hasn't won Senate since 1988. What are you doing? Why do you think you're different?
I don't know that I'm different, actually. I think Texas is going to do something really important for the country this year. We are running a campaign unlike any that Texas has ever seen, and perhaps unlike any the country's ever seen. No PACs. It is really just the people of this state who I am visiting, listening to, understanding, and fighting for that will make the difference. Thanks again. Thank you very much.
It's expensive to run a statewide race in Texas. So much so that Democrats focus only on the state's most populous counties, where they hold a clear advantage. But even if a Democrat wins those soundly, they still lose the state, like in 2016. In Texas's 10 most populous counties, about 5 million voters went to the polls, and Hillary Clinton won more of them than Donald Trump. But she still lost, because Trump blew her out in the rest of the state. So O'Rourke is ignoring conventional wisdom and campaigning in each of Texas's 254 counties. That's what brings him to Archer County, which went 88% for Trump in 2016.
Can kind of address where Congress is and the farm bills and such?
Yesterday, I had a student who had a total meltdown thinking about a school shooting.
How can we force the president to enforce the sanctions against Russia that were so overwhelmingly passed through the legislative branch?
You have to wonder if he is in some way compromised or if he has some other agenda that he has not shared with this country.
It's the first of 7 stops across Trump country that O'Rourke has scheduled for the day. Why go to these small towns where, there's maybe a couple thousand voters, if anything, and talk to them? Is that really how you're going to win the whole state of Texas?
I think it's key to being able to serve the whole state of Texas. And I don't know if I'm going to win more votes than the last Democrat who ran in those counties. But I know that not enough Democrats have been showing up in those counties in the first place, and they haven't been reflecting the needs of those counties.
One thing O'Rourke's not doing is tailoring his message for his audience.
I was about your age when John Tower took the state of Texas red. I got a good hunch that you're going to take it blue this time.
In Brown County, he touted his support for gun control.
I co-sponsored the assault weapons ban.
In Parker County, he was unapologetically pro-choice.
I believe in a woman's right to choose.
It's not clear that rural Texas will give a Democrat credit just for showing up, when he shows up with positions they oppose. Even some of O'Rourke's supporters are skeptical.
What I want is to share something. I think it's a concern for almost everybody here. It's a Democrat, and how do we reach moderates that are undecided, unsure?
I will work with anyone, anywhere, anytime to move this country's agenda forward. And as you can tell by my answer to the question about gun safety, or talking about universal health care, or ending the federal prohibition on marijuana and the war on drugs, I will say what needs to be said. I won't try to tack to the middle.
There's no good polling data yet on a Cruz-O'Rourke matchup. O'Rourke has been outraising the incumbent by 3-1 in the first month and a half of the year. But he still faces long odds against Cruz, who has way more money in the bank. The thing is, a loss this November might still be a win for Texas Democrats if O'Rourke keeps it close. That could mean he's got the beginnings of a new playbook for taking back Texas next time. What happens if you go through all of this work and you don't win?
Yeah, we've got to win. People are counting on us.
I know you got to win, but the odds are against you. And so if you don't, do you think you're sort of setting the table for bigger gains for Democrats in the future?
I don't know. All I can focus on is Texas. And I'm confident that if we win this, I think it's going to change the way that campaigns are run in this country.
If you lose, how much of a setback is that for Democrats? I got to keep asking.
Yeah, you can keep asking me. I don't know. I mean, I could care less, to be honest with you, about Democrats or about the Democratic Party or about parties at all. I'm just going to do my best, give it all I can, and that's all I can focus on. I'm going to respect the decision that Texas makes.
Schools will be open tomorrow in West Virginia for the first time in almost 2 weeks. Governor Jim Justice, state lawmakers, and teachers reached a deal today on pay and health care benefits that gets teachers back into the classroom. But that may not be the end of the fight.
My name is Karina Rouse. I've been teaching at Scott High School for 28 years in Boone County, West Virginia.
I do believe we've created history today.
So the pay increase that we agreed to today is a 5% pay increase for all parties involved in this negotiation, which would be teachers, public employees, service personnel, and state troopers, those individuals. And that will be each year, we will see that in our salaries.
What we really should be doing is looking at our children, at our teachers, at the education process as an investment that we're going to try to make great. And that's all there is to it.
Is the deal that we struck today good enough? No, it's not. It's the deal we're settling for, but it's not good enough. I deserve more than that. My children deserve more than that. My granddaughter, who depends upon her grandma for help too, we all deserve more than that. Right now, we are settling because we have students who actually need us back in the classroom. And it is the hardest thing in the world to go home at night and not know how they are. My students learned more in this strike than I think we've ever taught in the classroom. They learned they could walk into this place too. If the promises aren't kept, we do know how to make it back to our state capital en masse. There are 20,000 of us.
Alexey Navalny is Vladimir Putin's most hated opposition figure, and he's banned from running against Putin in this month's election because of an embezzlement conviction in 2015. Alexey got a suspended sentence, but his brother Oleg was found guilty too, and is still serving a 3.5-year jail term. Behind bars, Oleg has gotten creative about reaching Russia's disaffected. This underground tattoo party is the brainchild of Pavel.
1000 рублей. Есть ли кто-то, кто готов дать больше? Полторы. Отличное начало. Смотрите, как переданы тени. Это портреты.
The urban planner turned activist is using it to get Oleg Navalny's designs out to his supporters.
Ну и для меня, соответственно, кейс Олега — это такой, просто какой-то вопиющий символ, что ли, такой несправедливости. Просто по ощущениям, скорее, больше какого-то, я не знаю, маразма стало происходить. То есть людей, там, не знаю, осуждают за перепосты ВКонтакте. Это уже какая-то что-то на грани мысли преступлений. То есть больше, скорее, таких каких-то вопиющих совершенно случаев. Еще так элегантно вписалось. Отлично.
The tattoos have become a strand of counterculture in Putin's Russia. It's not that the designs themselves are brazenly political, but the act of getting one has become subversive.
Почему решил наколоть? В принципе, я считаю, что проблема политических заключенных в России, она действительно глобальная. Да, я считаю, что с этим нужно расправляться, эту проблему нужно уничтожить.
The project began in 2016 when Pavel wrote to Oleg in prison, asking him to create customized emojis known as stickers for the encrypted messaging app Telegram. But tattoos have a much longer political history there. In Soviet Russia, tens of millions of people served life sentences in gulags, where tattoos were used to differentiate between the authorities, criminals, and political prisoners.
Тюремная татуировка в России — это традиционная татуировка в России. Было много, естественно, поэтому она и популярна. Но и русская тюремная татуировка — это как раз та вещь, о которой все думают, что это нехорошая вещь. Но, это наша история.
Искусство для него — это чуть ли не единственный способ вообще коммуникации с внешним миром. Так что мы решили границы этого искусства как бы слегка расширить.
Oleg communicates mostly by mail with activists, who then publish his work online. He's launched several projects from prison, including a satirical web game about surviving jail and original artwork posted to Instagram.
Вот, соответственно, татуировщики, Илья и Миша, они сегодня к вашим услугам и могут набивать все, что вам понравится.
Oleg's tattoos go for about $50, with most of the money going to his wife. Neither Oleg or Alexey have tattoos of their own, but Oleg says he'll get one to mark his eventual release from jail. His sentence is set to expire in June.
I'm looking for humanity here. Dignity, horror, originality, something. That's what we're looking for. Boom. That's what in art world we call a polyptych, a many-parted single painting. Andy Warhol, needless to say, had 8 Jackies, 8 Marilyns, or 1,000. Think of Andy Warhol doing this. No, you cannot, because Warhol put those two colors together. No one had ever put clashing, primary, loud colors before. This person has no original idea of what color could be. If this is what you're doing with your computer, okay. Other than it looks a little like a kid's blanket or something out of a Disney film, it's a generic idea of a beautiful, threatening, mysterious tiger. But other than that, I'm not getting anything. My guess is it just sort of tiled a lot of different patterns into another pattern. This one, a tiger. I'm interested in how evolution works. And now I want this artist to take that beginning and go from there. This is only a beginning. If this scraped pornographic images from Tumblr, it doesn't show. That's not very pornographic, man. Think about all the Japanese wood prints. That's pornography. In India, every god is having sex with 1,000 other people, animals, each other, and then this? You see how it's been tamed and held in. Just let go. Open your sphincter and let go, man. Initial thoughts, incredibly dull, generic, boring. If the ultimate test is, could this have been made by a human? The answer is, yes, it has been 1,000 to the 1,000th power in times. What I feel is bored when I look at it. What I feel is a lack of originality in the idea that generated it and the object, everything. If we have learned anything today from this, we've learned that the programmers are not freeing up the program. I want the robot to tap into its inner robot. Be free. I would give the computer a word, and I would say, computer, make a Kolumstadt, and then put it in hell, and then put it in the 45th century BC. See what the hell came out.
That's Vice News Tonight for Tuesday, March 6th.